Bulletproof Radio, a state of high performance.
You do have a study in overweight women, though, that you've done as well, right?
Yeah, on
Tell me about
fasting.
that. Yeah.
So this is the one where I was just mentioning before, where we fed them. This is the one where we fed them all of the foods. So we had 4 groups of women. We had women who were randomized to intermittent fasting with caloric restriction. We had a caloric restriction group, so they were energy matched, and provided all their foods. And then we had a group of intermittent fasting people that were not energy restricted, so no caloric restriction. And then we had the control group. So the intermittent fasting group fasted for 3 days per week from 8 a.m. So they had breakfast, and then they fasted for 24 hours. And then the next day the intermittent fasting restricted people ate at about energy balance. And that is providing the same amount of calories as 70% restriction every day.
These are all women, though, right? Just to be
all
super.
Women.
Okay, that's really unusual, because not that many people have done women fasting studies, especially with the degree of comparing 70% of normal calories, 100% of normal calories.
Yeah.
Kind of summarize the results for listeners, because this is really important science.
Well, we saw that intermittent fasting 70, so the caloric restriction intermittent fasting, really it outperformed caloric restriction in terms of weight loss and in terms of improving health. So it was unexpected. We thought that providing all the foods to everyone, and we didn't want to get weight loss. We wanted to have exactly the same amount of weight loss in both the groups, so we could see whether intermittent fasting is beating caloric restriction without being different for body weight. And the science never works out as you plan it exactly, but so we did see that the intermittent fasting group lost a little bit more weight than the caloric restriction group, and they had better improvements in their health, so greater reductions in diabetes risk markers and greater reductions in cardiovascular risk markers than the calorie restriction group. So we proved our hypothesis, but we did get a little bit more weight loss than we wanted in one group, so that makes us not be able to say, is it the weight loss or is it the fasting, which is exactly what we wanted to do, which is better. So it was a little bit disappointing in the end. But the interesting
for the women
thing
in the study, though, it wasn't disappointing at all, because most people overweight are happy to lose some weight. So you did get a great outcome for the people in the trial, but the data hid from you. Okay, that's funny.
And what we saw really was they were doing great on the fasting days. So our ladies in that study, it was an 8-week trial. It wasn't long term. And in this case, I think more than 50% were very happy to do it. I think intermittent fasting was very new when we ran that trial too. So it had really only just come out. Michael Mosley's book came out during the trial. And so it was all over the media, and they were excited to be a part of this study. And so I think that maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know, but they were very adherent, and they had trouble eating on their eating days enough, all the food we gave them, so they weren't actually that hungry. They had their fasting day, they did great on it, they were really compliant, and then they got to their eating day and they didn't eat all the food we gave them, so that's why they lost that little bit more weight, I think, than the calorie restriction group. I don't think it was magic. I don't think that they had, super metabolisms or anything like that. But maybe there were some appetite changes that makes them not be so hungry. And potentially it's ketones, potentially it's ghrelin. We don't know. That they are, even they're not that hungry the next day. They can't overeat. They don't want to overeat.
The hunger suppression part of fasting is very interesting. This is about 12 years ago, I was working out the principles on the Bulletproof diet, which is a cyclical keto thing with intermittent fasting and a little bit of time restriction in it. And I said, I'm going to eat 4,500 calories a day, but generally either have intermittent fasts for breakfast or only have fat and nothing else at breakfast. And it was so hard to eat that much food because you're just not hungry. But the reason I was eating so much is I was trying to say, I'm eating enough calories to gain 20 pounds, but I'm only going to gain 3 pounds. Therefore, the calories in, calories out equation is just flawed. But what I did was I lost weight. And I kept losing weight even on a stupid amount of calories, which this is not the Bulletproof diet, though, guys, for your listening. I don't recommend you overfeed at all. It's not good for you to overfeed. There's lots of evidence it's bad for you. But I was just sort of trying to disprove something. And I did it for probably longer than was smart. because I felt really good and I had a ton of energy and I lost weight. But you can do it eating when you're only hungry, and magically you probably do get caloric restriction without noticing or caring, which is the whole goal. Versus like when you're obese, you're saying, I'm just going to eat, rice cakes and, low fat puffs of something or another. You're just ravenous all the time, and it's very hard to maintain compliance. And then it messes with all sorts of things like blood sugar. So I know that there's, like, we're circling around with all this research, that there's something magic that's happening here, but we aren't certain exactly what all the pathways are, right?
No, we're not certain at this point. And yeah, it could definitely be the ketones coming up. And I mean, we know that, from all of the LCD diets that are out there, and how that works, we don't know. But the LCD diets, they really bring up the ketone levels, the liquid calorie diets, and your paleo type diets bring up ketones, and they are, in humans anyway, suppressing hunger. How that works really has not, because it doesn't seem to work so well in mice. And so they can't test the mechanisms quite so well as they can do in a mouse model.